Today we're looking at an application problem for quadratic equations. So let's read the problem. A rectangle is drawn so the width is 7 inches longer than the height. If the rectangle's diagonal measurement is 55 inches, find the height. Round your answer to 1 decimal place. So anytime we have a problem that has some sort of shape in it, we want to draw the shape. So let's draw a rectangle. Now let's figure out what would be our height and what is our other measurement. So let's keep reading. The width is 7 inches longer than the height. So this happens often, that we don't know either of these, but that one measurement is based off the other. So if the width is based off of the height, then the height will be your variable. So I'm going to just call this X. You could use H. It really doesn't matter. So we're using this as our height, and now we need to figure out what is the width. So how wide is this? So the width is 7 inches longer than the height. Well, if height is X, then our width is 7 inches longer. Now that's not 7 times. Longer means addition. So this is going to be our height, which is X, plus 7 more, so plus 7. All right, if the rectangle's diagonal measurement is 55 inches, find the height. Okay, so our diagonal goes from one corner to the other, and they're saying that this is going to be 55. So we are given that one. Now, we're not given the area or anything else, so we're going to have to use a special property here. And by creating this diagonal, we have created a right triangle. And the property that we can use, this equation that we can use for a right triangle, is the Pythagorean Theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, A and B are going to be these, like the height and the width here. Often those are called legs. So the leg of the triangle, the leg of the triangle. This is called the hypotenuse, and that will always be C. So let's plug in. Let's say this is our A, this is going to be our B, and this will be our C. All right, so A is X, so this is just going to be X squared, plus, when you plug in, put parentheses around it, if we have more than one term, or if it's negative. So B is X plus 7, so we're going to say X plus 7 all squared, equals C squared, which is 55, also squared. So let's do some simplifying here. This is going to be X squared plus, if I have a binomial squared, I can write it twice and FOIL it out. Or you can use, if you know how to write that out, from the beginning, that's fine. 55 squared is 3,025. All right, let's FOIL this out. So this is going to be X squared plus 7X plus 7X plus 49 equals 3025. Now I need to add like terms. So I've got X squared and X squared is just 2X squared. And then I also have 7X and 7X, which is 14X, plus 49 equals 3025. We now can see that this is a quadratic because we have an X squared term. So for a quadratic, I want to make this equal 0, and then we'll solve it. So let's move the 3025 over by subtracting. And bring down 2x squared plus 14x. And this is going to give me 49 minus 3025 is minus 2976, and that's going to equal 0. Now, there's a couple things we can do here. We can try factoring, but we can also see that there might be something in common. So notice that all of these are even. So I could go ahead and just take this 2 out. This may or may not happen on your problem, and that's totally fine. But if you do have something in common, let's just go ahead and factor that out as a GCF. So if I divide this by 2, that gives me x squared. And this is a legal math operation, totally fine. 14x divided by 2 is 7x minus 1488 when I divide that by 2. So what I like about this is when it's set equal to 0 and I factor out a GCF, I can do this extra step and say divide this side by 2 and divide this side by 2, and I just get x squared plus 7x minus 1488 equals 0. So when we have a GCF, it essentially divides out. Now, we can try factoring this. I'll go ahead and save you a little time in that I listed all my factors trying to factor it, and there were none that worked. So we're going to go straight to quadratic formula on this one. So our quadratic formula, we need A, which is 1, B is 7, and C is this very large negative 1488. And then we need to remember the quadratic formula, so that's minus B plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Let's plug in now. Minus b, which is 7, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's 7 squared, minus 4a, I get 1, and c is negative 1488, and then all over 2a, which is 1. So I get negative 7 plus or minus square root, and when I put that in the calculator, I get, let's see, $6,001 divide by 2. And then I put this in the calculator and try to figure out what, can this give me a perfect square? And I'm going to give you a little hint. If the directions say round your answer to a decimal place, quite likely this is not going to be a whole number. And it's not. So this is going to be negative 7 plus or minus. And I always, just for good measure, if this says round to 1, then in the problem, I go ahead and round to 2, and then for my final answer, I round to 1. And that just makes it a little bit more accurate. So this is going to give me 77.4. I get 66, so I'm going to say 47. Divide by 2. Now we need to talk about this. Normally we would separate this and say negative 7 plus 77.47 divide by 2. And negative 7 minus 77.47 divided by 2. One of these is an issue, and it is because this gives me a negative. Even if I divide by 2, it still gives me a negative. And my problem is dealing in lengths. And you can't have a distance or a length that is negative. We don't live in that world. So this option is not even valid for this problem. We're only considering the positive here, what turns out to be positive. So this is going to be 70.47 divided by 2. And then when we do that calculation, you get 35.23. And if we want to round to 1 decimal, then we really just need 35.2. 35.2. Okay, so this is 35.2 inches. Now, we're not quite finished because we need to talk about this. This said find the height. And we're lucky enough here in this problem that it says, that it just says find the height. You may have a problem that say find the height and the width. So our height we called x, and we just solved for x. So we can say our height is the 35.2 inches. But our width is 7 more. From the problem, it says it's 7 inches longer. So if I add 7 here, I get 42.2 inches for the width. So if we needed to know both dimensions, that's how you would do it. So I realize that was a long problem. Just be very careful with your signs and plugging in your numbers. But remember the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared.